inherited by us in our society, we have to therefore take care of that property. In the same way, when we say heritage, which is inherited by us in our society, we have to take care of that inherited property too. Today, our youth is busy with digital life. Why not, with digital age, get some awareness of our heritage? And therefore, we have organized a webinar on awareness of heritage in the digital age. On behalf of GVM's Dr. Dada Vaidya College of Education, I, Mrs. Karuna Sataradekar, Associate Professor in this college, welcome you for this great deliberation. It's great honor to our college that we have been conducting various webinars on different topics under the guidance of our officiating principal, Dr. Ananina George. Since inception of our college, along with other professors of our college, she has been instrumental in organizing different programs. In this pandemic period also, we have tried our level best to keep the flag of GVM's Dr. Dada Vaidya College of Education very high. Let us now listen to our officiating principal, Dr. George, as I invite Madam to welcome the gathering.
Thank you, Karuna. Good afternoon to all. Respected resource person, Leena Vincent. Am I audible? I'm sure. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, again, okay. Respected resource person, Leena Vincent, management members of GVM's working committee, all the enthusiastic participants, faculty members of GVM's Dr. Dada Vaidya College of Education, students of B.Ed, M.Ed and pre-primary. Welcome to this webinar on awareness of heritage in the digital age. A very well thought of topic for the webinar. When I was going through the highlights of the webinar, I found the concepts to be profound and deep, which in fact, I think deserves an elaborate workshop and for that, I thank our resource person, Leena Vincent, for accepting our invitation. Thank you, madam. Thank you for being our resource person for today's webinar. The idea of culture, heritage, and conservation have been defined in myriad ways and many a times distorted and abused. However, myself, having been brought up in the cultural capital of Gujarat and having the privilege of imbibing the cultural ethos from the people, the prestigious MS University of Baroda, the historical monuments, particularly Baroda Museum and Fine Arts faculty, which is relevant to the topic of the webinar, I am in fact intrigued to listen to the resource person on this well drawn out topic. This is accentuated, in fact, by the fact that among the 200 registered participants for the webinar, we have people from Nashik, Pune, Mumbai, Tamil Nadu, Pondicherry, Buldana, Chandrapur, and Kashmir. This is remarkable. As I was browsing through the biodata of the resource person, Leena Vincent, I found her to be connected to all the diverse areas of human endeavor. This is a great example for all of us, where what she is making one's knowledge meaningful and applicable to offer solutions to human problems. This is a unique feature as compared to the run-of-the-mill biodata that I usually see. I am sure that the webinar will be enlightening and exciting and will set all the participants on a new mode of thinking. I thank the organizing team headed by the webinar coordinator, Mr. Diptej Vernekar, the strong IT team of Ms. Prajakta Kavlekar and Mr. Diptej Vernekar, the compare for this program, Mrs. Karuna Satardekar and Mrs. Akshita Samant for the vote of thanks. Thank you once again and have a wonderful afternoon listening to this person who has experience in almost all areas of human endeavor. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, madam, for your kind welcome note to our resource person and to all the other participants. Thank you very much. Let me now invite Assistant Professor Shri Diptej Vernekar, who has been instrumental in organizing this webinar, to introduce the resource person for today's webinar.
Am I audible? No?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Karuna ma'am, for the wonderful start. And ma'am, Anna ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce before you our keynote speaker for the day, Mrs. Lina Vincent. Educational qualifications are master's degree in art history from Chitrakala Parishad, Bangalore, bachelor's from the same institute, Chitrakala Parishad, Bangalore. Lina Vincent is an independent art historian and curator with 2 decades of experience in arts management. She is committed to social engaged practices that reflects in interdisciplinary projects she has developed and participated in. The famous areas of her research, the focus area of her research extend to the project with arts, education, printmaking, history, and practice. The documentation of life tradition, vernacular arts, and environmental consciousness in arts. She recently concluded an archival museum fellowship through Indian Foundation of Arts of Goa Chitra Museum. She initiated and headed the Piramal Residency Artist Incubator Program 2019, which I was also a part in past. Selected curatorial project in the last 5 years includes Good Found India, International Art Programs for Climate Change Awareness 2017-18, Story of Space, multidisciplinary public art program, which is quite well known in Goa since 2007. Tabiat Medicine Healing in India, Mumbai. She has curated numerous exhibitions with galleries across India and continues to contribute publications on art history and contemporary cultural practice. Projects like Goa Family Archival Project with Serendipity in last edition, uh, publications Personal Paradigm, Peaks issue April 2020, Encounters with Oral History, essay publication, Palm Set Blutter Herbarium, Mark Weight of Petal, Art Botanica, March 2019. She has also been curatorial associate for Tata Steel Multidisciplinary Art Residency and Outreach Program Jamshedpur in 2018. Co-curator Story of Spaces, which I already mentioned. Co-curator Morphology of Archive, Migrating History of Goa with Sabita Sachi, Museum of Goa. And the most and important, I feel, she was a curator for Kochi Mazarus Binale, the only Binale in India. Uh, Students Binale, she was part of in 2014. So, ma'am, we are truly grateful to have you among us, dear, and dear participants presenting before you our Lina Vincent.
Thank you so much, Diptej, for that extensive introduction. Thank you, Anna George, ma'am, and Ms. Karuna, for your very kind words. It is indeed a great pleasure and an honor for me to be invited by the institution to present on today's theme. And I would like to say that I'm happy to be able to share in a small way some of my small experience in the field of art history and heritage conservation, which I think is really one of the crucial aspects of our contemporary life today. So I think that, just the fact that we are all meeting online for a panel discussion, so many of us together, makes us really realize the importance of digital technology without the possibility of having a Google Meets platform, we couldn't be doing this, and we cannot gather together in one place. So I think that this is something that's so relevant today, and I'm so glad that we are able to even think about the idea of heritage in terms of a digital presence. So without further ado, I will open my presentation. If it so happens that there is a cutoff due to our spotty internet facilities here, please let me know and we will reconnect instantly with another device. So I hope that you will all have some comments and questions by the end of it. And I will go through a broad idea of what I feel is important in today's day and age. I'll just open up the presentation. Sorry about that. As you can see, I myself am not extremely comfortable with digital technology as yet, but I invite you now to join me on this discussion, which I have called the revitalization of cultural heritage awareness in the digital age, and discussing within this the new challenges and methodologies that we can put into place. So actually, some part of my work here is already done because Ms. Karuna and Ms. Anna, both of them, gave us a broad idea already of what heritage is all about. It is to do not only with a personal identity and location, but also an entire nation or an entire wider space, which is the globe. Anything that is left behind and connects with us from our birth is part of our heritage. And in India, we have an enormous and vast amount of heritage that we are legacy to. It is our legacy in every corner of India, in every region. We have a heritage that is given to us, and it is sometimes so easy to take everything for granted because we have so much of it. The subcontinent of India is blessed with a large and rich history that we have every recourse to on an everyday basis. But do we notice it or not is something else. As I was mentioning, we do have a really vast heritage in the subcontinent. And this is not only in terms of physical entities and material heritage, but also the intangible heritage, like recipes, like songs, like rituals that come from family histories. Every single thing that we inherit in our everyday life is coming from heritage. And in terms of the larger discussion of what we have and what we have to conserve, definitely since the colonial times, much has been done to identify, to conserve, to document, and of course to display in some of our museums these varieties of histories. Of course, history itself is debatable because there is a certain voice that comes with history. The persons who are choosing to place certain elements of heritage within a museum are also making a decision, and the decisions are based on different socio-cultural understandings. But all that notwithstanding, we do have an evolving tradition which is part of our life in India. And we also have to understand the noticeable way in which we are losing much of our heritage in many different ways due to national calamities, natural calamities, due to destruction, due to neglect, due to a variety of different causes. Often we lose elements of our heritage. And perhaps digital technology is the one thing that will allow us to conserve something for future generations without having to lose everything. And this is the time, I think, that in the pandemic period, when we are looking back at what we have inherited, this is the time in which we can make certain decisions about the future. So it begins, I think, with a sense of belonging. Unless one feels a sense of belonging, or to say, this is mine, this belongs to me and I belong to it. Without that sense, it is very difficult to feel connected with any part of heritage, be it something that is like a grandmother's story, or something that is a structure or a monument which is in your area or in your country. So the idea of belonging is something that I would very strongly want to push out to our youth, to recognize what it means and how it is possible then to either work towards protecting it and conserving it, or bringing attention to any destruction that is happening, or in fact simply learning to expand one's own horizons to include all these histories into our lives. So to go back a little bit, what is in fact the kind of broad idea of the kind of heritage, cultural heritage that we are bequeathed with in India, starting right from thousands of years ago with the Bhimbetka rock cut paintings. Sorry, the paintings in prehistoric art are something that we can look back on and say, is this where our civilization started for us in the Indian subcontinent? And what was pushing the people at that time to actually make these designs and these patterns and these forms for us to even look back on and say, okay, this was life at that point. We are in fact really indebted to the ancient civilization of the Indus Valley and Harappa, that has also given us a legacy that has strengthened the position of our entire nation in world history. We don't have, it's sad to say that a lot of monuments in India have been destroyed, and a lot of material that comes from the past has gone away into different spaces, but we do have this legacy to look back on. Some of you definitely might have been to the Ajanta and Ellora caves. It is not possible to imagine actually the splendor and the might of these particular monuments that are part of our heritage, our material heritage. Images of these monuments simply cannot share the same feeling as when you walk through these walls, understanding thousands of years of aesthetics and artisanship and success in creating art. Through the Buddhist and Hindu and Jain periods, we have wonderful monuments across India that teach us in an everyday way how they attained to perfection, and all of them anonymous. They didn't even have to sign their names on it. They were anonymous artists and artisans who were doing things for the love of the king and God, which is something that we don't see in these days. We have also a heritage of a widespread heritage of scientific knowledge, texts that have come down, the Shastras that teach us how metallurgy has been developed in India, how astronomy and astrology has been developed in India. And this is all part of a vast classical heritage that comes down to us in texts and in materials. As I was mentioning earlier, a lot of the material that is our heritage has gone into a variety of different museums across the world due to our colonial situations as well as others. Due to also corruption and various other things, we have lost a lot of our material. And I think that also I would like to say here that it's important to recognize that our art history and our cultural histories have been written largely in a Western perspective, and it would be really important to think of the local and to think of the vernacular and regional sometimes when thinking of heritage. Even now, in terms of engaging with what is around us, I think it's a wonderful chance now to document and to tell stories and collect oral narratives that are part of our local culture and not necessarily taking the form of a Western perspective of documentation. And this is something that I hope we can think about, and I hope that we can also discuss later. So, through the thick and thin of the political and cultural movements in India, we have imbibed a lot of different aesthetics that have come down to us in terms of architectural elements, in terms of sculptural elements, paintings, different styles, use of pigments. We have, in fact, an incredible heritage behind us, as we can see right here in Goa with our heritage of 400 plus years of Portuguese rule and the way cultural society in the Goan region also has imbibed a wonderful mix of various different traditions in terms of language, in terms of rituals, in terms of folk cultures. And we live now in a thriving melting pot of culture that comes from so many different directions. We also have to understand that these political innuendos and these changes in perspectives that were caused by sometimes destructive acts have also created different trajectories or different pathways in which heritage has been conserved. And sitting here today in a single space, we can look into different spaces and documentation of images by different people and organizations and connect with these varied histories that have come about. Like, for instance, how the temple culture moved deep into the south of Goa because of the politically heavy activity that was going on in the north. And so we have an enriched history of temple culture throughout the south of Goa that is a living culture today. So while looking back at all this, what I think is something that we really do need to consider is that one size doesn't fit all. In producing a certain set of institutions during the colonial period and a certain set of parameters that we follow even today with our museums and institutions, it doesn't mean that the same thing can be followed forever. We do need to change with the times. We do need to understand that the cultural heritage that is so important in India's society status today should not simply be used for a limited perspective, but really to enrich our present and our future in different ways. But it does require that we formulate something together. And this is not the work of a single individual or a set of individuals, but it is everyone together. It is citizens, it is the governments, it's institutions, educational, definitely. It is about people and communities participating in this sense of belonging and in this sense of enriching our own traditions, not in terms of nostalgia alone, but to allow it to participate in our present and to make it something worthwhile for the future. So here, in fact, I do want to particularly mention Dada Vaidya and the entire heritage of Indian medical heritage that we have been given in terms of the different streams of local medical developments that have happened over the hundreds of years, in which Ayurveda is one. And it is such a crucial stream of knowledge to look at, particularly in this day and age of the kind of chaos and conflict that we see. And it is important to be able to remember that in terms of heritage, we should not only think of monuments or something which is physical, but every element of this understanding of a culturally specific stream of practice and of knowledge is something that we have to acknowledge. And even if we don't use it, we need to understand that it is important to carry forward into the future. So we do have, again, not only the mainstream classical understanding of art and culture, but also the folk elements. And this comes, I think, that we know, as Ms. Anna George mentioned in the beginning, in Gujarat, in Madhya Pradesh, in Bihar, in Tamil Nadu, in every part of India, we have different forms of folk art and craft and textile and so many things. Again, I go back to the word of taking it for granted, because we are so used to, in fact, seeing all these things that we fail to understand the crucial part that it plays in community knowledge and in an evolving understanding of human life itself. And there are many streams of this knowledge that have been forgotten, that are ecologically sensitive, that teach us to live with nature and to help in the understanding of a more wholesome way of life, which sometimes we forget in this click after click digital age where everything comes from a small screen that we are looking at. But it is indeed important to look back at these important parts of our culture and understand that we need to be part of it. Like the sacred groves that exist also in Goa, like the rituals that follow the seasons and the tides, like the understanding of community knowledge of life cycles and the way particular species and life forms can thrive only because of certain rituals. All these are so important in our own understanding of heritage. This brings me, in fact, to definitely look at this whole movement on social media and otherwise of the Save Amchimolam project, and so many people, artists, and poets, and activists, and common public is taking part in this simply because it is important as everything else, natural heritage. It is something that is what we cannot live without. If we do not conserve our environment, if we don't understand the importance of natural heritage in our local existence, then it will be impossible to leave a future or a common inheritance for the future generations. So this brings me to the ideas that we do definitely need to conserve what we already have. We have already lost a lot. And when we have to conserve what is there with us, because there are certain aspects of our heritage that won't come back. Once it's gone, it will be gone forever after, for our generations. So when we think continuously of this idea of what can we leave behind for the future, what can we do now that can stop or prevent further deterioration of the heritage that we have? How can we conserve traditions that are now only with an older generation? How can we as a younger generation collect them and keep them for posterity? This is an important question. So to bring an overview of how it is with museums in India, first and foremost, we don't really have very much of a museum culture in India, or one that helps us to visit monuments or take an interest in history in a very deep way. Because most of our schools and other institutions have a more or less tokenist attitude towards the whole idea of heritage, and it's very rare to see an entire series of schools coming in for museum programs or trying to discuss heritage. it's a little uncommon. Even though we do have festivals, we do have celebrations which are public, that bring to mind these aspects of heritage to us very often. Our technology is obsolete very frequently, and we have limited budgets. Working in the museums industry, I understand very deeply how difficult it is for people in museums to, in fact, try and extend outreach programming to a larger public, because it doesn't happen. So, in this whole age of mall culture and quick entertainment, our concentration towards extended engagement with history is very low. And in fact, I just hope that all of you will be able to listen to my discussion until the end. Uh, we do have a negligible interaction in educational institutions, as I mentioned. What happens in museum spaces is that a lot of material is shut away in boxes. It often discourages public engagement, because when you see something shut in a box, it takes away. Of course, it is conserving the material, but there are many different ways, and this idea of digital technology is something that can be used to a great extent to bring alive all these elements that have been, to a large extent, shut inside these dioramas and glass boxes in our museums. In fact, many of you must have been to museums and walked out a little bored, thinking, what to do. These are all old, dead things, what to do with it. But in fact, these dead things are what make things alive for us now. These are images of the condition of the Goa Museum prior to its shift to the Adil Shah Palace. And it is, in fact, something that is common across in several museums across India, where the infrastructure is falling apart. The systems are obsolete, as I mentioned. Rain comes in, all kinds of climatic damage is done to priceless heirlooms that we have. And in fact, when the Patna Museum shifted from its old center to its new one, they found a vast number of objects missing, which means that there is also corruption, there is also pilferage, there is also a commercial aspect to all this that we don't see on the top. We do have wonderful individually run museums that are developed on passion alone, like the Goa Chitra Museum run by Victor Hugo Gomes, where he has individually gathered and collected all this material. In fact, sometimes visiting the kabaddi shops or the places where they sell secondhand material and putting them together to construct a sort of indigenous story of the Goan landscape. But what happens also with individual establishments like this? It is very difficult because, as I said, the economic element is also something that is crucial and very important. So what in fact can we do? What is the kind of dialogue we can have over these various problems that we face in heritage institutions? Definitely, this is a time to review. We need to understand what is possible in extending the life of these objects, but also developing models that are looking at national and international examples that have been successful, to not keep all this material tied up in one place, but to understand how to take it out to different audiences, to allow the audiences to feel a sense of belonging in different space. And currently, in fact, during the period of the pandemic, to use the internet and to use online platforms as a space to develop these dialogues and also extend the interaction of these spaces and this heritage that sometimes disappears into oblivion. There are several museums and trusts in India that are, in fact, currently working on these sort of programs. And in fact, the IFA recently conducted an application grant for people who want to work purely within the internet space. So for young people there are a lot of different ways in which it's possible to engage with these things. Now, in the past, we would have programs like, yes, guided museum tours in different languages. And here I say language is a very crucial thing, because we are all privileged and lucky enough in some ways to be speaking in English and interacting in English, but it need not be the same for everyone. We do have to understand that language itself is an important element of heritage that needs to be carried on in different ways. So even in recognizing and developing any kind of programming, the idea of vernacular language is something that is entirely crucial. To look at spaces, of course, this is a matter of consideration now, considering that we do not have the ability to gather in large groups everywhere. But in Goa particularly, it's wonderful to notice the number of local tours, walks, and individuals who are taking people around, understanding local culture, local heritage, architecture, food, material, and even oral histories from people who are willing to share them. So these are all elements that one can easily organize and also be part of. I think it's important to give everyone the possibility of doing this, either participating or doing something yourself. In fact, even to do something yourself, it need not be in a big way. It can be something really small. You start in a small way, and then it can be only for a select number of people, and then it can become something larger, because that's the way a movement towards heritage conservation begins. And we also have the idea of engaging with lesser known communities and their heritage in order to help them evolve even more. And here again, I mentioned the notion of language, because it cannot be a top down or patronizing approach. When we are engaging with communities, even, it is important to be at the same level, or in fact learn from these communities. We have so many communities in and around Goa, and in fact across India, who own such wonderful knowledge. And this knowledge is what we as participants in our common heritage can locate, identify, document, and share. So there are many possibilities and many ways in which we can do things. Again, going back to KG Subramanian, I really understand what he says when he says that tradition should not be conceived as a steamroller, but as a support to individual growth. Tradition that is not so much concerned with survival of the past as the enrichment of the present. It goes without saying that whatever of the past will enrich the present will find a place in it. And I think that is something crucial that we have to take away. We have to recognize these elements of the past that are contributing to our present and take them forward with us. And that is something very crucial. I'd like to go a little bit into this, the project that was recently concluded as a fellowship with the Goa Chitra Museum in Banauli. And it gave me personally the opportunity to look into various different histories and oral narratives that come out of objects. Not only looking at objects as they are, but looking at the stories they generate, looking at the communities that they talk about, and engaging with them in such a way as to take it out to different forms of public. Because, as I mentioned earlier, museums unfortunately are not the most exciting places that we have in India. People feel that there is a good opportunity maybe for a nice selfie in a museum, but to look at an object and read its history and understand where it falls in a common understanding of our life, that is something that is not often done. So it was an exciting period for me to be able to invite a lot of people and students and participants to come to the museum, but also engage in many ways in digital platforms with the objects in this museum, which is a wonderful museum. And if some of you have not visited it as yet, I would encourage at least to look at their website, or when the pandemic is done, to go and have an appointment to visit and view the museum objects. So it was wonderful in the sense of bringing in so many students from different schools uh, to understand at what level does the younger generation actually understand terminology, understand stories that their grandmothers or grandfathers tell them, understand local language, also the vast difference in the forms of the objects themselves that have become obsolete. Because in Goa, there was a natural culture of using natural materials in everything, in pots and pans, in the baskets, in the shendris, in everything. It is an understanding of nature in its very essence. Now, everything that we use is plastic. So, small things like this that are part of our heritage can urge us to look at the way we lead our life differently. There were many different aspects to this entire engagement, which I'm just giving a few glimpses of. There were students who engaged with the objects through physical activity. There were others who engaged through storytelling and drawing and painting. And there were others who engaged with the idea of narrative that comes from gaming. And even that is an aspect of our life right now. One of the interesting things that came about was a collaboration with heritage advocate Hita Pandit, who is even now going to release a film about the grinding stories, or the stories that are in fact sung by women when they grind rice or other material at homes. And some of you might know this as a heritage being from, coming down from your own families. So this was a very interesting way in which these songs were recorded, and in fact, these films that are made will now be accessible to people in different places. These very private hymns or songs that women sing in an understanding of their own life and their own histories as they use the grinding stone. And the grinding stone itself is somewhat obsolete now with mixies and all this faster technology, but it is something that is so inspirational when looked at as a feminine object. So during the process of this particular engagement, I was able to invite different artists and different people to come and engage with the objects in different ways, to tell their own stories through their works, not only to look at objects as they are, but to also build imaginary narratives, because it's important to understand this sort of evolving culture of history that should not be stagnant but keep evolving. Wonderful contemporary technology was used by some of the artists like Divesh to produce interactive installations where digital technology becomes part of this interactive space, and people can not only see the object but also hear, feel, and sense it in different ways. So in a sense, it should, when walking into a museum, it should open up this entire space where you can engage with your own history in different ways. I'd like to also mention that this is one example of someone who is actually doing documentation in his native region, Netravali, and putting it out there for people to watch on YouTube. He is not the only one. I am meeting so many wonderful young people in Goa who are deeply interested in their roots and who are gathering material and documenting it in different ways. I would definitely suggest that if any of you has stories to tell in your localities, do take out that phone, do make a recording, store it somewhere, because this is all something that will be important for some time in the future. And the virtual space is something that is opening our horizons in so many different ways. So what can you do, in fact, to become aware of that sense of belonging to everything that is around you? We need not even look very far away. To just look at your homes, look at the old vessels in your own family kitchen, look at old paintings or photographs, look at any interesting documents. The idea of conservation is not something intellectual or something which is heavy. It is something that is doable by each and every one of us. You simply have to be interested enough. I take the example here of Prajal sir, who is somebody of an inspiration to all of us by the amount he has gathered and what he does in talking to people about heritage. In simply taking a photograph of something that is facing destruction, you can bring attention to it. To understand how to use your power as a citizen to change policies, to bring in uh, the more powerful people to come and take action to change the way things are. This is all something that we can do in our everyday life because we have access to the technology. We all have these phones with these wonderful cameras. So next time, instead of taking a selfie, take a photograph of something that needs conservation, something that is being lost, something that an old person is singing and who may not live for long. All these things are what each and every one of us can do, and all the social media is there for us as platforms to in fact share, engage in a meaningful way, not in fact in a harsh or a critical manner, but in a very constructive manner. I'm so happy, in fact, to be part of two projects that have been going on for more than a year now. One is a project called Object Speak, which in fact started with the IFA program, and it really looks at the importance of objects. And many of you, of course, use Instagram because it is the big thing. I had to learn this step by step because I am not a very technological person myself. But it is important in these days to understand the use of technology, which is so powerful for documentation, for sharing, for understanding that the virtual space opens up so many horizons for us. The other project is Goa Familia, which is in fact documenting family stories. And both these are on Facebook as well as on Instagram. And if you're interested, you can go and have a look. And we are gathering these wonderful histories and stories that otherwise might not ever come into life. They are not documented in history books, or they are not made into volumes. These are personal histories, community histories, histories that are at the grassroots, that are often missed in the larger picture. So, what are museums, in fact, doing right now during the pandemic to effectively overcome these problems of gathering together or allowing people into spaces? Educational virtual tours are being really offered free by most of the prominent museums across the world. A couple of museums, maybe 3 or 4 museums in India, are in fact offering these resources now, or in fact tours, special tours, or tours that can be booked to look at different objects. It is part of the understanding that even making something virtual or photographing an object in a 360-degree angle so as to make it a virtual object is something that requires money. It is not a cheap thing to do. So with that understanding, it's important to also know that museums themselves are stretched to their very ends, trying to work out with their budgets to offer the best possible experience to visitors. But the spectacular part of this pandemic period is that it has opened out all this to a larger extent. Things that were not available before are available to us now. And I think that it is something that we can in fact take advantage of at this moment. For instance, going through simply Google Arts and Culture, visiting these museums is something that I would encourage. We do have several Indian heritage sites which are located on Google Arts and Culture that allow you to choose monuments, to choose objects of art, to look at specific things. And it does, of course, always bring the question of the haves and have-nots. Those who have access to virtual space, the internet, digital gadget, some kind of device that allows you to enter the spaces is great. What about the entire population that does not have access to this? I want to bring this in because this is something that we cannot overlook. While looking at this digital space, it's always necessary to understand the privilege that comes along with it. So it is also our responsibility as participants in this space to innovate, to keep thinking of new ways in which these platforms can be shared, and to keep innovating so that the expense of it is not so humongous. The greater the amount we can share our heritage, the longer it will last. If it's only to be connected with a specific few, then it limits its outreach and its life. So the wider we innovate, the better it will be for the future generations. That brings me to this wonderful project that was done by my colleague Aparajita during the IFA interaction with Goa Chitra Museum. The whole idea of augmented reality or AR, which so many of you must be, of course, familiar with because it comes from an understanding of selfies. So you simply create something that is not there through a virtual interface. And that's how the real world is sort of enhanced by all these sort of elements that are generated by the computer itself. It's artificial intelligence which is taking part in our life in many different ways, sometimes adversely, but also has a huge amount of advantage. But I think it has to be in a controlled space where we know what is important and what is not and how best to use it. But in terms of interacting with heritage, in terms of creating modules of play and games and creating stories around heritage, augmented reality is something that is extremely powerful and useful. And in fact, several museums now are using the technology. And of course, we also have virtual reality, which is a more expensive discussion, but it really allows you to be in a simulated environment. It allows you to enter into a space through your mind and not your body. And it gives you the feeling that you are interacting with the real space. And that is something that can, in fact, lead to incredible experiences for museum environments, for heritage spaces. Let's say you want to visit a monument in Moscow or you want to visit a monument in Sri Lanka, and you just wear these glasses and feel that you are in that space and look at a 360-degree view of the space, and what an amazing feeling that is. In no way, of course, can these digital or virtual experiences replace what we can feel in physicality. To be in front of a monument or to be in front of an object, or to in fact be in taste your grandmother's cooking on your plate, if you imagine it virtually, it is not going to give you the same feeling. But on the other hand, it can build on the physical. The virtual space can allow you to extend the physical in many different ways. It allows you to share spaces in different ways. It allows you to break away from the boundaries that are caused by geography, that are caused by place that are caused by community. It can allow you to break away from all these boundaries and actually create a space of shared heritage that sometimes cannot be done physically. So there are advantages and there are disadvantages to the whole idea of digital heritage. So in this unique way, in fact, many museums are developing these interactions, but as it is until now a very costly proposition for us in India, it is a slow process. And many museums are trying to do it in a limited way to interact perhaps with a certain set of objects so that they can become open for the public. So what we do need is that we all require to come together. In fact, this is a burden and this is a responsibility. And I think there's no better time than now, during the time when we are so driven by technology, so driven by the virtual space, so much so that we cannot communicate with each other without using these interfaces. This is the time in which we can look back at these elements and try to think how each one of us can participate and contribute to something that is going to make for a better preserved notion of heritage. And here, digital technology, of course, is at the forefront. As I said, it cannot replace physicality, but it engages with a wider audience and the outreach is much more compounded because of it. So with this, I would like to, in fact, come to more or less the end of the discussion. I would like to leave you with an essence of what I feel digital technology and the use of a different kind of language can develop an entire space for viewers. So the Indian Music Experience Museum in Bangalore is not a very old museum, but they are really bringing to life their entire collections of musical instruments. Something, in fact, musical instruments left as objects are just objects, but when you hear their sounds, they come alive. So I would leave you at the close of this session with a small film that I hope will play, and I will take Prajakta's help for that. That you can experience how important it is to be able to share this entire experience of the museum through a digital animated piece. And after watching this, we'll get back to the Q&A, and I look forward to that as well. Prajakta, over to you.
Prajakta? Prajakta, are you audible? Can you hear me?
Okay.
Okay, fine. Diptej, you are sharing?
Otherwise, if she's not able to do. Yeah.
You'll share? Okay, fine.
Lina, is it audible? Just let me know.
Yes.
Ma. so many sounds keeping me awake.
I'm here, beta. Do you remember the sarigama that I taught you? Ga.
Ma!
Familiar sounds give us comfort, don't they? Strange sounds can make us curious and lead us to new discoveries. Listen to those crickets. How many do you hear? Now, they are a band playing for you. Musical notes are the building blocks of melodies. Just as a few colors can mix in infinite ways to create new stories in new worlds. Many centuries ago, music was created with just 2 or 3 notes. It came from a deep longing to connect with the world and beyond. We still hear these notes in the music of different faiths. As civilization grew, so did our music and its range of colors. Our voice was probably the first instrument of music. In time, we found clever ways to make new sounds inspired by nature. In music, you can hear the echoes of the spaces from where they come from. Just like the song of the honeybee, you can hear music when people are hard at work. Music is like a wheel spinning in time. Season returns with its own colors, celebrations, and emotions. Notice how your heart beats faster and louder when you're happy and excited? That's the rhythm of your favorite song. Listen to your heart. That's the sound of music waiting to happen. Now, listen to the silence between the heartbeats. There is no music without silence. Can you hear it? That's music too.
Thank you so much, Diptej. For anyone who could not view or see it clearly, please do go back and watch it. It's a lovely piece that gives you an entire introduction to the museum. So now I think that we can go ahead with some of the questions, if there are, or comments.
Diptej, there are few comments
Yeah.
and questions in the chat box.
Yeah.
I read it or?
I have noted down.
Okay, Diptej
I
will
have
read.
noted down. Yeah.
Okay, go
I think first Anna ma'am wants to ask something. So let us ask her question first. No?
Yeah. Yes. Ms. Lena Vincent, it was a very elaborate and very well made presentation. So I should first thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Now you have taken such vast areas that I really loved. You began, you have included from Indus Valley to Goa Chitra. So that was a really wide range of things. And myself having been to Goa Chitra, I was so amazed that, but very few people in Goa have seen Goa Chitra, which is the very sad part of it. So he has spent so much time, effort. I met Victor Hugo myself and I have interacted with him myself. I felt that it's very sad that when we talk about such a fantastic museum that he has made, on his personally he has done it. And when it comes to Goa, when people come to see Goa, how many times do we project Goa Chitra as a part of our Goan heritage or as a part of our Goan tourism? We are so much interested in showing our beaches and giving them some fried fish, which is so low level for our Goa's heritage. Being from Baroda, I have lived here for 26 years, but wherever I go, I try to catch the heritage of that place, and I feel very sad that the heritage of the places in Goa and in other places of India also not given so much of the pride. People are not having pride of their heritage is something that I lament. In fact, I lament about it. And I'm very much intrigued, when Diptej joined, it was such a relief for me that I could talk all this to a person who understands. He is of a very high level, definitely. But these passions inside and the pain of this heritage not being respected and honored, which I see in other parts of the world and in different parts of India, it is there. I'm not saying it is not there. But when you mentioned about Goa Chitra, having seen it so many times, I think it should be part of our education system itself to take our students there and show them the preserved heritage. And as you rightly said, it is not just the artifacts. It is the song that your grandmother sings and the things that your grandmother makes. I am so proud that you have shared so much that I believe and I live in this, because I still in this era also I cook the same way my grandmother cooks, though I have not seen her directly cooking. So I feel that that's how you preserve a heritage. You preserve it through her habits. Her habits, when you preserve, I think that's a heritage that you preserve. Of course, museums are part of our heritage. But I'm very proud of the heritage that you have. It may be the way your father behaved and you behave like that. That also becomes your heritage. And being from Baroda, as you said about museums having guided tours, in 1990s, Baroda Museum is already having guided tours with earphones in 4 different languages. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
I have myself visited it. In that, I have been going there from my childhood, but I was so happy in 1990s. So that itself shows that they are interested in sharing that heritage of Baroda Museum, which is very, such a vast amount. You must have seen it, or if you have not, maybe you can see. And you were talking about virtual tours of museums. India, some of the, in Delhi Museum, they have started, Kolkata Museum has started, Hyderabad Museum has started. And even some of the museums in Paris, they have started. In fact, I was discussing with Diptej. I discussed all these things with him because he is from that area. So I discussed all my lamentations about all this to him, and he understands my pain. So generally, I discuss only with him. Others may not know that I have such desires about the heritage so much. But I am so happy. I am so happy, Leena Vincent, that you have come with so many things. And when you said that there is heritage in the basket that we make, I was so happy that I said, such small, it need not be museum. It is the flower selling lady who is selling the flower mala. That mala itself, the way they make, is a part of our heritage. I believe that, you know, the way they sit with the tokri, that itself is a heritage of ours. The way they make the flower mala is a heritage. It cannot be done in a factory. It is. So these are, I asked, I will let end because I can go on, because you have triggered so much, you know, Leena Vincent. I don't know whether others have been triggered, because you have triggered the nerve of mine, which is so much lamenting. I would one day come and discuss with you so that I can feel relieved. Others may not know what I'm talking about, but possibly you and Diptej can share my pain of heritage not being taken care of. That is, I would like to see our history. This is my wish, that in my lifetime, if I could see the historical monuments of Goa being well taken care of, and there is a guided tour right from the biggest temple to the biggest church to the mosque. People are taken care of when they go there, and there is a sound and light exhibition, there is a show. You know, the museums, they become museums. The historical monuments must become museums of Goa. I don't understand why Goa is not attracting people to see such fantastic heritage that we have. It is not just you go and put some flowers in the temple and come. I feel, where is the heritage of it? You know, that. So why don't we make our Goa's historical monuments the main attraction of Goa's tourism, rather than these beaches and these other things which are not very proud of things. You know, I'm not very proud of somebody saying this, you know, things which are not, I mean, that is not what Goa should project. It's very sad that Goa has got fantastic cultural heritage, monumental heritage, as well as the heritage of ecology, ecosystems of Goa, such unique heritage we have. I am so sad that the tourism department and, you know, some kind of service would surge it and go ahead, and rather than, you know, just showing your 5-star hotels, we have got such fantastic museums, so the heritages in form of museums and otherwise, which need to be, I think, I don't know, I have spoken too much, but I never speak so much in a webinar. But Leena Vincent, you have spoken about things which are so neglected, and it is so sad. It is so sad. We just say we are proud of our heritage, we do nothing. You know, that is when you see any monument, they say Pandavas came here and all that, but nothing is being done. Nothing is being written about it. People are just throwing sand on it. People are sitting on it, and people are writing "I love you" on it. Now, if you say that you are proud of your India's heritage, how do you write "I love you" on that and all those kinds of things? Everywhere government cannot come. So when young people are saying, "Oh, we are proud of our incredible India," show me where you are proud of it. Yes. So I feel that we are being phony. We are not doing. So museums are not the only part. I agree with you, but the remaining part is in the hands of people. In the hands of people. And if we say that Indians are proud, then show me. You should not write on the historical monuments. You should not write there. You are, as you rightly said, I liked your point right in the beginning. You said, I loved that point, that those who made those monuments, they did not write their names. We take selfie in front of them, but they did not take a selfie. They did not even write their name. So that is our heritage, that we don't leave back our name, we leave back our work. So if we are proud of our heritage, I think this is what we should learn. Thank you so much, Leena. I think I will, and the remaining part of my lamentations I will do with you later. I talk of Diptej sometimes. He is my victim many times to hear all this.
No, I look forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Lina. So one question from Sanjay TS, our faculty member, sir.
Okay.
I don't know if he is there, but he asked, could you tell me about community participation in heritage conservation? So I think some of the things, minor things, we have already shared some light on that. Would you
Yes.
just elaborate on this?
Yeah, so I think that I would simply extend what I said earlier in that every individual can and has the possibility to make a difference. So there are organizations, NGOs, heritage organizations that are working in small and big ways in every locality almost. Like I was talking about, Soul Travelers. They are doing local walks. They are talking about local architecture, food, interactions with folk culture that is almost hidden otherwise. So how can anyone participate in this? One is you can support by in a monetary way. If you have the resources, give what resources you can share. If you have money, share money for someone who is doing the work. If you have other resources, like you can produce graphic art, or you can make posters, or you can write, do that. Contribute in whatever way you can. That is how a community can come together to save something, to conserve something. It's not about it's absolutely not about looking at anything selfish over here, because this is all common, this is all property that we are leaving behind for a future generation. So I would say community participation can be at any level and to whatever extent you can give and what you can give, whether it's your time, whether it's your talents, which could be anything: writing, singing, painting, doing graphic design, making a small video. Or you can do active work, like you can go and work with people who are in fact maybe taking the weeds off or clearing garbage from a monument site, or doing voluntary service where you are doing guided tours for a particular monument. So I would say it is all in each individual's hands. It does not need somebody else to make a plan for you and give it to you. You can make your own plan and join other people. And there are many people now in Goa who are interested in fighting for this. So I would say just do a little bit of search and you'll find the right platform in which to participate.
Thank you.
So there is another, it's not a question, but it was just a comment. So we can discuss upon it. Keeping things in a museum and provide scope to view our heritage, but unfortunately, it eliminates the very thing that present in our nature and culture. I think reading this, I think we should share something upon this, Dina.
I don't quite understand the meaning, in the sense that
Yeah.
yeah, keeping things in the museum, it separates it, is what is meant. It takes it away from its natural setting. I'm afraid I don't quite understand the comment.
Okay, so as I understand, I think she's talking about uh, when you enter, like you said, when you enter in a museum, somewhere you lose the relation with the object, the how it displayed, something like that. She's trying
Okay,
to explain. And
right.
so my also, so in that relation, I also have a question regarding that. So, uh, like, what do you think, like, where our museum design are lacking in their
It's not the
presentation?
government's job. Then.
Is it the psychology they are not looking into how
They're not looking into our
things
heritage.
should,
Yeah.
how,
Again, I mean,
yeah,
So it's a very true experience, I think, for many. And I would like to begin by saying that we do have limited budgets, which I mentioned also. arts and culture is the last budget. After everything else, proportionately it is given to arts and culture. And it's a problem that I think is faced by multiple places, and in India we do face it extensively. So the thing is that we need to use whatever resources are possible for us in small ways to bring in a curator to create some sort of interactive space. Even in a small way, some sort of interaction can bring it alive. Instantly, the objects will come alive if some kind of interaction is there. If people are all alone walking through a museum space, it is not useful. So the thing is, to bring it alive, it can be done in many ways. Like Anna ma'am mentioned, these voice explanations that can come in various different languages can help people to engage in different ways, or some sort of games or interactions which can now be accessible on mobile phone. You at the click of a mobile phone, you get a kind of character or somebody to explain something to you. All these things are definitely possible in small ways in our museums to bring them alive. I think one of the first and foremost things to do is to introduce children and young adults to museum spaces and heritage at a very early age, because then the love and understanding grows, and throughout your life you will be attached to these spaces, and then things like writing your name, so and so loves so and so, will not happen, because the respect and the love is already there, the sense of belonging is there. So we have multiple, it's a layered problem, Diptej, and whoever commented says it in a very true way, I guess. But it's a multi-layered problem, and we need to address it step by step, and in whatever capacity we can. So that would be my answer.
Yeah. In some ways, it's true what you said. I think the Q&A is almost done. Yeah. Karuna ma'am? Uh, Akshita ma'am?
Yes.
Hello?
Diptesh, you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. This presentation has been very good, very knowledgeable for us. Madam Leena, you have really done a nice presentation. And in the end, the video which was shown telling us about the music, how it started and how from nature we get the sounds and we learn. It was really fantastic. I loved it. And to add to your presentation, as you said, in Goa also there are so many people doing guided tours, soul walking, soul videographing. On YouTube also we can see things about Goa, about India. I think our youth
Yeah.
should understand that, and they should try to protect our heritage and culture, historic monuments, everything. It's in their hands, I feel. Thank you so much. Now I invite Assistant Professor Ms. Akshita Samant to propose vote of thanks, as no program is fully ended without proposing vote of thanks. Madam Akshita?
Yes, I hope I'm audible.
Yes, Akshita.
Thank you, Karuna ma'am. Yeah, thank you, Karuna ma'am. Good afternoon to one and all digitally present here for this webinar titled Awareness of Heritage in the Digital Age. First and foremost, I thank the resource person, Leena Vincent, art historian curator, who has so eloquently shared her rich on-field experiences of 2 decades and her perspectives, which we can all sense are developed through areas of focus of research on the revitalization of cultural heritage, awareness in the digital age, new challenges and methodologies. I thank for the plethora of information and knowledge that ma'am has shared with us, not only regarding the physical, but as well as the virtual spaces, which can be used as interactive spaces for people to interact with their own culture and their heritage. staying connected to our own roots, as well as sharing the responsibility to a better preserved notion of heritage. Yes, all of us very much agree to this. Staying connected to our roots, as well as sharing the responsibility to a better preserved notion of heritage, is what a message that we take back. And I'm sure that each one present here agrees that we are going back from this webinar with a very developed and a rich perspective of looking at our own heritage and culture, whether Goa, India, or all around us. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Vincent, ma'am, very much. Now, I extend my sense of gratitude to the Management Committee of GVMs. I also thank Dr. Anna-Nina George, our officiating principal, who has so actively participated in this webinar. I thank Diptej Vednekar, the program coordinator, and also for introducing the keynote speaker. I thank Associate Professor Karuna Saturdekar for her excellent comparing and sharing her personal views and her note of appreciation. Along with this, I share the entire team of Prajakta Kaurikar, Nikhil Dicholkar, Shaunak Pagi for looking into the nitty-gritties of hosting, broadcasting, and the technical requirements which are very much needed for hosting such a wonderful webinar. I thank all the staff, the students of B.Ed, M.Ed, pre-primary of GVMs, and all the people, the participants who we come to know have joined not only from the nooks and corners of Goa, but in and around the world and the nation. Thank you very much for making this webinar an absolute success. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much. Thank you all and good luck.